is where Guatemala has manipulated the situation based on the environment that this compromise has created. And from time to time, when Belize has a clear example of where we can put our foot down in a diplomatic sense and say enough is enough, we simply capitulate. We step back and we give them more room. This can't happen. It's a total manipulation of the process, and Belizeans are attuned to that. So that's why we're calling for a boycott of the referendum on whatever day they call it, as long as it's not on the agreed upon date of the 6th of October. Now, I've heard people say that, well, what good would a boycott of the referendum do? I'll tell you what it will do. It will send a clear message to the leaders in Belmopan, in Guatemala City, and those in Washington, D.C., that Belizeans are attuned to the situation. We know what's going on. You know, from the perspective of, okay, yes, the government signed the compromise back in 2008. Admittedly, on a personal level, I was opposed to it. But because it was signed and it was a process that we had to go through, up to that point, I said, all right, well, you know what? I will champion the no ICJ cause. And I have my reasons for that. And I believe that Will and others in civil society are of a similar mind. Based on the principle of the fact that Guatemala has just unilaterally changed the whole dynamic, and our leaders have sit back and let them do it, that's why we're calling for a boycott. The boycott will send a clear and concise message that, look, we're tired of the foolishness, we're tired of being bullied, and we're tired of just sitting back and letting Guatemala have their way. Needless to say, you can probably sense that I have a lot of dissatisfaction with the way the OAS is handling the situation. And I'll give an example. I'm also part of the BTV, the Belize Territorial Volunteers, led by Mr. Will Mejia. We've gone on several excursions to the border points, including Gracias a Dios, Aguas Turbias, and, well, we have one scheduled for this weekend. Yes, at Garbutt's Falls. And, well, we'll give you a little bit more information about that. With regards to that, you know, the thrust of the BTV is to demonstrate to Belizeans, as we have through our actions, our proactive actions, that Belize has a border. We know we have a border, despite the fact of what some of our so-called leaders are telling you that, oh, well, it's an artificial border. It's that you can deem it whatever you want, but it's a border. And I know that we have a border from the simple fact that we're recognized by the world bodies, which count, those being the UN, CARICOM, SICA, ironically. Well, not ironically, I mean the OAS, ironically, SICA, and what have you. They know where our borders are, and it's the role of the BTV to sensitize the Belizean public. I'll give you an example. When Will led us to, what was the first one we went to, Will? It was
Halacte.
Halacte. Yes, it was Halacte. We went to Halacte. After Will led us to Halacte, and then the De La Fuente brothers spearheaded the move up north to go to Aguas Turbias. Excuse me. And prior to that, we went to Gracias a Dios down in PG. Yeah, all of a sudden, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs started to change their tune. And I don't know if you recall, beforehand, the Minister of Foreign Affairs was saying that, oh, well, you know, I wouldn't advise them to go to the border, this and that.
Dangerous.
Yeah, it's dangerous, trying to instill fear in Belizeans. Well, proactive leaders like Will Mejia and others demonstrated to the Belizean public that, hey, we have a border. You need not fear going to your border. After all, it is our border. Now, we're not talking about crossing the line. Now, when they come with this foolishness trying to destabilize things, and I'll use that term, because basically what they were saying is a lie. When they try to destabilize things and strike fear in the hearts of Belizeans, what they're doing is being disingenuous. Because the fact remains that we have GPS technology. And I kind of went in a roundabout fashion, but I was getting back to the excursion that we went on, believe it was in April. This is the one that I didn't make it on. This was to Otosha. Dolores. Now, as a result of that, what happened, what we came across were developments along the border. And Will can correct.
The road, you mean?
The road and the palm plantation.
African palm plantation. Now, these things were obviously within the so-called adjacency zone. And I use the term so-called because I don't believe in the adjacency zone. We don't believe in that.
None at all.
I mean, basically what happened is, through the compromise, through the acknowledgement of the so-called adjacency zone, this is where Guatemala was given enough wiggle room to do the things that they've done. What I'm talking about is, you could recall a few months ago when they had a meeting in Washington, D.C. at the OAS headquarters, the Guatemalan ambassador to the OAS put up that video or map or whatever,
Yeah, with the
showing no clear demarcation of Belize.
Belize attached.
Now, when Belize's ambassador put forth a vigorous, quote unquote, what is it? I forget the term that they use. Well, he disputed it, right? He instructed that that's not right. You know what the defense of the Guatemalan ambassador used? Well, everyone knows that we're in the middle of a territorial differendum with Belize, so therefore we can use it. That, my friends, is what I'm saying, is that this is a lot of smoke and mirrors. When we signed on, and I say we, it's not the people, because they didn't come to the people as they should have with regards to good governance practices. They didn't come to us from beforehand. They went ahead and signed this thing in 2008. And that's what gave Guatemala the wiggle room to do what they're doing. But getting back on track, when Will and the group went down to Dolores, they came across developments in the so-called adjacency zone.
Right.
Mind you, they came across an OAS representative that tried to discourage them from going closer to the border, where we know it is because we have GPS technology. Thank
They were
God.
saying this is the line.
Yes.
Mhm.
They were saying this is the borderline,
Yeah.
right? And then we were hundreds of meters away from where the survey markers
Yeah,
are.
You
man.
had a Maya gentleman
Yeah.
with you
Who
who
said,
said
look,
that he
that's-
knew the area.
Yeah. Grew up in Dolores, you know, a teacher, the principal of the school. And he was like, look, we've been going to the borderline all our life. How all of a sudden this man from the West will now tell us that the borderline is this side, when everybody in
No, he
Dolores
wasn't
knows
saying
that.
this is. He was saying this is the line.
Yeah,
this is
this
the
is
line.
the line.
So
Yeah.
what line are we talking
Yeah,
about?
exactly.
So you see, we have two classic examples of where there's a clouding of the issue. People were born and raised a PG, nowhere part the line there. There's no question about it.
We only
right?
know about one line, but apparently there's
Yeah.
some other line that
Some-
somebody else has
That they're
charged.
They are
trying to-
confusing the
Yeah.
people. They are confusing the people. But even back in 2008, when they signed this agreement, from the first day they signed this agreement without consulting the people, like you rightly said, Paco, the